Hi guys, welcome back to the Business of Living Well. Today we sit down with Tracy Jordre. She is an architect and she is kind of starting a movement of workplace well-being. And she's really talking about like how we can make our workplace more productive and feel better so you can work better. And I think it's just a thing that wasn't really prioritized for the longest time. And now she is kind of making it happen.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear her mindset on it because it's very opposite than a lot of business owners and big corporate buildings that we have. And I think it's really great that she's creating spaces but within her space for people to thrive in different atmospheres. And even for myself, like some days I like working from coffee shops, some days I like working from home in absolute silence. So I think it's great that she's created spaces of those different calibers within one space that people can thrive in and different moods that they're in. Right. So I think it's huge. It's so different than even 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
What it was.
Well, and everyone's so different that it's like how when you're making these workplaces for just one person and like everyone's going to work in such a different way and be productive in their own way. And it's maybe hard to see as a business owner to like put that cost up front and pay for all these different things. But when your employees then are more productive, I think it'd be fun to like track over time how it actually does kind of give you a return.
Yeah, I think a lot of people there's it's very opposite of people really want high productivity, but then they get mad at the people who aren't giving that high productivity. And it's like, well, have you looked at why? Yeah. Are they in a space that they can't thrive in and then they can't focus? So they're not able to do high productivity. Yeah. I always think I look at Microsoft's campus and my dad works for Microsoft. So we went to the Washington one. They have a soccer field. They have 5 restaurants. They have
crazy.
It's so crazy. Yeah. But they're one of the highest lowest turnover of employees. I mean, they do lay off a lot of people, so that's probably,
but
not sure. But
people aren't quitting.
Yeah, exactly, because they like going to work and they give them different environments. Same as her. She said they really thrive together because they are all just happy to go to work because they have an environment that they can thrive in.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
It was so good. It was fun to hear just her mindset on all of it. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to hear this one and her different perspective of workplaces and well-being in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so follow along.
Join Tara and Alyssa as they explore the intersection of business, lifestyle, health, and wellness. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a wellness enthusiast, or someone seeking a meaningful life, this podcast delivers insights and inspiration for living your best life, because true success is about more than just the bottom line. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe and like us on our channel and follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram at The Business of Living Well. Tracy Jordre, welcome to the Business of Living Well.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're so excited.
We are. We're so excited to have you. You're a mom, a wife, a commercial practice studio leader, and workplace design expert for JLG Architects. And you have been kind of doing a lot in getting people to have well-being in their workplaces.
Yeah, it's a huge passion of mine. It's something that I've been really working on, kind of focusing within our design practice for the last couple of years, especially. There's a really personal background story to it. It's something that's really, really important to me. And as I've kind of understood more and more every day, what has transpired in my own personal journey and family's journey, I've just realized how much, how many more people like me are out there that benefit from having workplaces that are really healthy. And while it seems like that should be kind of a no-brainer, we really don't focus on that inside our office floor plans, within our typical office environments. So I've been working really hard with my design team and with our clients to really find ways that we can integrate, really meaningful well-being practices, because it matters. And if we want to thrive in our workplaces, we really need to have the tools that allow us to be able to thrive.
Absolutely. I think it's so important because we spend so much time at our work, sometimes more than we spend at home during the week. So to create kind of that healthy space, can you tell us just a little bit about like when you got started with it and what kind of started you on the journey?
You bet. Well, long story short, I have 2 kids, amazing kids. My oldest son, though, has had a really rough last few years. He's doing great now, but he has had some significant mental health challenges. And during the pandemic, he actually lost one of his dear friends who died by suicide. And that really put Cole in a really bad place. And so for a few years, we had to, at home deal with what he was going through and trying to love on him and parent him the best way we could. We did have to get help along the way. It was really hard. But during all of that, I realized, coming to work was my respite. Going to work was the easy. Being at home was hard. And so I was able to kind of sustain that for a while. And then at one point, I realized that work wasn't working for me anymore. And I couldn't quite understand what had changed, what had shifted. Home was still hard. I still loved being at work and with my coworkers, but I just felt like I couldn't concentrate. Everything felt so loud and just I just couldn't keep focused on anything. And it was only through a fair amount of research and finally actually a medical diagnosis of having both high functioning depression as well as ADHD, which are common when you've dealt with some traumatic events, and that, going through what we did with our son was pretty traumatic.
Absolutely.
And so that's how it manifested. And it ended up, at the end of the day, it left me with a very dysregulated nervous system. And so I realize now that when I was saying I couldn't focus and everything just felt so loud, it was due to that dysregulated nervous system. And I didn't have a place where I could just go and be quiet for a few minutes. Our work environment at that time was open office floor plate where we all worked in one space, and we had conference rooms and support spaces as needed. But we didn't have a lot of small areas where you could go take a private phone call or have a one or a couple person meeting. We had the big conference rooms like most offices had. And I realized then that was part of what I needed, was to be able to go and find a quiet place and just for 5 or 10 minutes, just sit in quiet. And it was enough time that it would allow my nervous system to settle down and be able to just get back to normal.
Yeah.
And as I did more and more research and understood that ADHD and high functioning depression are actual neurodiversities. And so that led me on a lot of research about neurodiversities and how that impacts how we interact with our environments. And kind of interesting to me anyway, I kind of geek out.
I love it. I love it. No.
But about 19% of our society has a neurodiversity, which is a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah.
Especially coming out of the pandemic. There's been a lot of trauma throughout the entire world. I don't know if neurodiversities have greatly increased since COVID, but I would certainly anticipate that has had an increase.
Just the anxiety, I think, and not maybe now seeing an uptake in social anxiety is a lot what I've heard too.
Even with just all the events, COVID kind of kickstarted, I feel a bigger impact of it around the world. And now I feel just there's so many other things going on in the world daily that it's just uptaking too.
Yeah. Well, we did kind of an unscientific study, but a little study in our Fargo office at JLG, and our team ended up coming in at 44% of having either a diagnosed or a perceived neurodiversity. And it's almost half of our staff. And so a couple of years ago, I guess it is now, we started working on the concept designs for a new office. We had outgrown our original location on Broadway. And we just felt it was really important to make sure that we got all of the programmatic spaces needed for our office really thoughtfully resolved. And so once we understood that we were dealing with a lot of staff that also had neurodiversities, we needed to figure out like what do we need to design and do differently to make sure that everybody could, have an environment where they could perform well. Because every office wants a high performance work environment. So we knew that had to be an outcome, but we really tried to challenge kind of the status quo of, well, then what does that mean? And so we, the design team and I had a lot of fun exploring, what do we need to do differently? And the biggest thing is, we talk about designing for neurodiversities, but then there's, still more than 50% of our staff are neurotypical, so we have to design for them as well. So what does designing for neurotypical plus neurodiversities look like? And we really came down to the reality of it's just simply choice. Having an office environment where some people like to be in a cooler environment and they work better.
Yep.
Some people like
Not me. I like to be warm.
But some people like to find that little sunshine spot and where they thrive in being warm. Some people like the really active kind of coffee shop like environments. I need it to be really quiet. I need to have kind of a heads down focus area.
Yep.
So just designing our own choice was really what we focused on, and we moved in a few months ago, and it has been the biggest blessing, I think, to all of our staff. We are loving it. And most importantly, we were split apart into 2 different locations and we are back together. So it's really fun just having an environment where we're all reunited. We can split up right around COVID. So it's been
Good to put everyone back together.
I love that. I feel like nowadays, a lot of companies, they do really push high productivity and they want that. But then people burn out so fast, especially nowadays. I feel like the burnout is a lot higher than it used to be for some reason. Probably because of the anxieties of the world and everything like that. Their nervous system is already very heightened. But I love that you said you have different areas for different people, because I've even myself, like some days I love working for a coffee shop. Some days I love like sitting in front of a fireplace and then very quiet and just working. So I think that's so awesome that you've kind of thought of different areas that people could thrive in, and you leaned into that, because it's not a lot of companies that do. That wasn't always your architect vision, right? But what's kind of like kept it going and wanted you to grow more in that?
So I think one of the things that we did really differently at this new office is we leaned into the idea of not having assigned desks, which is kind of scary for a lot of people. Right now, about 75% of our staff have what are called hoteling desks, meaning you can sit anywhere you want on any given day. We allowed anybody who felt really strongly like they had to have a permanent spot, we allowed them to choose their spot. And when we first said, anyone can choose it, I just thought, gosh, that's going to kind of blow apart our idea of having like different work environments. Everyone's going to have a standard spot. And our staff just said, no, we want to embrace this idea of having different work environments based on how we work each and every day. Mm-hmm. So if I know I'm going to be on a lot of conference calls or have to do a lot of client calls, then I sit in the loud area where, it's just normal business as normal. But then we have a total of 4 different working areas, all the way from loud down to the farthest opposite of that is our focus huddle area, where phones aren't allowed, nobody's on conference calls, there's very little audible or visual distractions. So if you are really, say, working on a proposal or a contract or something where you really have to have hyper
deadline and
then that's the place you choose to sit. But we also have a lot of different types of seating throughout our office. When you first walk in, there is kind of our cafe area, and we've got cool, kind of jazzy, vibey music going. And I'll be honest, I sit there way more than I ever expected to, and it's fun. It's active. It's not super loud, but it's just a fun space to be in. But then we also have quiet shroud chairs where you can sit in that chair, look right out. We're on the 7th floor of the RDO tower. We have insane views, so it's fun to just sit in one of the corners of the office and just look out while you're on a conference call. So it's a pretty special option.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most, believe different spaces is we also designed into our office a respite space. So if, say you're coming down with a headache, you can go into the respite room. It's just like a small, similar to the size of a typical like huddle room or a single person room. You can go in there, lay down. We have a reclining chair that you can just close your eyes if you need to. Or I go in there once in a while just to calm my nervous system. And that has been kind of a game changer for our staff. I know there's a few people who still kind of chuckle, like, I would be caught dead, using that. But those of us that need it are really grateful to have that kind of a space. And I really hope that that's something that our culture starts to embrace more. Yeah, it's important.
It really is. Like, I feel like it's the opposite in a lot of bigger companies and corporate companies is if they find you taking a rest, they're like, how long have you been resting? Right. You need to get back to work. Yeah. Where I love that you have the very opposite mindset of like, if you need the rest, take it, because then you'll do better productivity wise. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I think, we're all attached to our phones.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but my phone doesn't turn off at 5 p.m. though. It doesn't know. So I think that idea that, especially as you, continue to grow in your career, there's just expectations that you're available to some degree, almost around the clock.
Yeah.
I mean that a little bit, casually, but if we have to be tethered to our phones and our computers and taking those outside of the workplace, typical hours of work, then why is it frowned upon to take a 5 or a 10-minute shut-eye just to recharge? I would rather do that and go back to being a high performer than feeling drained and overwhelmed and not performing well.
Yeah. Well, so maybe someone that isn't able to move offices and start from scratch, what are some maybe small design changes that they could make just to kind of kickstart that well-being?
You bet. I think one of the simplest things that, again, it almost seems silly to say, but we still see it on a daily basis, is just making sure that the office has furniture, that fits well. I have a coworker that's 6'6", or he might even be taller than that. Well, very tall guy. For the longest time, he and I had the exact same chair.
And you're like, no.
So just ensuring that you have furniture and desks and so forth that fit you well, that just has to be baseline.
Absolutely.
The inclusion of sit-stand desks, I think, is also really important.
Absolutely.
It's not even a joke anymore when they say, sitting is the new smoking. So the more that we can be moving, sitting, standing at times. We even have a walking kind of treadmill or walking mat at one of our stations that any one of our staff can use at any given point in time. I use it. I'm not going to say I didn't once trip on a conference call. A little bit for a while.
That's funny. Yeah.
But just finding ways to introduce movement into your workday. If you can go out and do a walking meeting, you can meet somebody out of the office, whether it's for coffee or at a park. You can just try and find ways to connect, even into the community outside of the office. I think is huge.
I love a good walking meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also mentioned last time I think we talked. You also mentioned something about like HR policies. What are some of those that could be implemented?
Sure. Well, it's sad to say that in the last few years, unfortunately, I've seen such a kind of flip of companies, including, say, like a workout area in their office floor plates, because they found that they just weren't being used. And I believe that oftentimes HR policies aren't in alignment with what companies are saying they are promoting. And it's not usually that there's any intent. It's just the HR policies haven't kept up.
Right.
I think if you have a workout facility, I can think of one example where a client had one on the main floor right next to the conference rooms. So on your way to a conference, you're walking right in front of a workout facility of coworkers on treadmills or whatnot. those coworkers probably felt very exposed and possibly judged.
Yeah.
Right? So having the right environment, but also the policies that say, no, we celebrate you using that. I mean, there's got to be, do you make up your time, off the clock or whatnot? I don't know.
Yeah.
Has to decide what's right for them. But just making sure that they're providing the spaces and then supporting those spaces with the policies. Because it's just too often there's a disconnect there.
No, I love that.
Okay, so we were talking kind of about having gyms, having different places in the workplace for people to go and kind of decompress or work in different environments.
Right.
This is something that you've really implemented into your own space, and I know that you help other people create spaces. Have you seen them be pretty receptive to having these different kind of spaces?
Sure. I wish I could say that we had a gym in our office. We weren't able to do that. The building actually has some facilities. So initially we thought we were going to have access to those, and still kind of a to be determined. We're working through some of those negotiations. But I think what we've really embraced is the idea of movement and really celebrating the fact that we have a lot more square footage. So we are just naturally
The
office a lot more. But we're really trying to go for walks at lunchtime, to take an afternoon break, pop down to street level. We're up on the 7th floor, which is amazing. But we've quickly realized, too, that we used to be right on Broadway. And we're missing being down at the community level. Yeah. So we're making a very concerted effort to make sure that we're coming down and really doing whatever we can, whether it's going out for lunches and or meeting friends down at the coffee shop, just making sure we don't get kind of caught up just hanging out only at the office, no matter how much we love it.
Have you seen other businesses kind of, are they receptive to it, or are they kind of pushed back a little bit into having these different spaces in there?
I think, every business typology is different. I work with a lot of big financial institutions. I would say they are open to it. And their break rooms, they typically really celebrate and try to make really phenomenal spaces like that. They seem a little less receptive to the idea of fitness centers during the workplace. I think sometimes because they're typically in suits and ties and they have to be just a little more dressed up. But I think there's also this, and I will say my husband's a banker and I know how hard he works. I don't think he has a spare second in his day to even think about it. But then there's other clients of ours that, if it's a private company, they seem to fully embrace the idea and really try to double down on providing amenities that are extraordinarily meaningful for them, but they use that as really an element of their recruiting and retention. And certainly we would say that's true as well for financial institutions. They just have different needs that they like to focus on. I also work on, some public offices for city and county governments. That's probably the one area that I found to be the most challenged, because there's a fear of the public seeing people that are working in those spaces as being anything other than just being at their desk or in offices. And
which is so interesting.
Not, working as hard.
Yeah.
Agree. And in some of those conditions, I would say they almost need those spaces.
Yes, because they're being worked like crazy. Well, I can just imagine, it's hard to see a return on investment for something like that. I think our world is maybe leaning a little bit more towards putting mental health in the forefront and physical health. So how does it work then? So if a business comes to you guys, if they come to JLG, are you kind of pitching some well-being at them? Are they coming to you specifically because you've been marketing it?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I would say more often than not, what we're just trying to do is ask really provoking questions and trying to dig down into what is at the root of a thriving business for them. What do they need to have an office that just helps their staff work extraordinarily well? there's no sense in putting in a fitness room if we know that their teams just are not going to use it.
Yeah.
So if that's not a helpful or a meaningful solution, what is? At our office, we love ourselves a good cup of coffee. And I'm not saying that's always the healthiest choice, but it's something that we have found community around.
Absolutely.
So we made a very large intentional design element or design and emphasis around the idea of an enhanced coffee bar. And it's just part of our culture. It's part of who we are.
I love that.
So it's trying to find what's the right solution for each and every client and doing the best that we can to really celebrate who they are and their culture. And then also looking at it, what do they need for recruiting and retention? Some companies aren't trying to recruit young 20-year-olds coming right out of college. They might be focused on, more senior staff. Well, those solutions are really going to look different.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to, entice the new round of graduates coming out of college.
Absolutely.
True. What advice would you kind of give those leaders who are wanting to bring more of a well-being environment into their workplaces?
So one of the biggest challenges I have found is leadership willing to be vulnerable, to ask, what do you want? And then being willing to listen to what they said.
That's the key part, right?
Yeah.
I think companies are afraid to ask because they're scared of what they're going to hear, or they ask and then just don't listen. That's the worst thing we can do, right?
Yeah.
If you really want to understand what your teams need to be healthy and thriving, we have to be better about listening. In today's world, I think that deep listening is a challenge. Not something I think our teams do a great job at, is asking those probing questions to try to get to the heart of what's needed.
That could be a whole nother episode of just how to listen better. And
as a parent, I struggle sometimes.
I know. Well, so you talked about earlier how your previous space was completely open concept design. Are you seeing a lot more open, like bullpen areas in offices now versus everyone having their own offices? How is that affecting productivity?
Sure. We're actually seeing a little bit of a shift back.
Okay.
So I would say, a few years ago, we saw a really big surge towards the idea of open office. And a lot of companies saying, hey, this is not working for us. With open office, you have to have the right support spaces for it to be effective, as well as, really solid acoustical solutions. And there's many other elements. But a lot of companies weren't getting all of the parts and pieces right. And so when some of those parts and pieces are missing, an open office concept doesn't work well. So what we're really seeing now is this embracing of what are the right spaces, and the idea that maybe you don't have to have an office full of offices, but maybe there are a few key people that should have, their own private dedicated offices. Maybe there's, hoteling offices. Maybe you have senior leadership that travel a lot. Do they all need their own private office, or can they share? So there's more of that happening, which I think it's fun and exciting. And the more that we can find shared spaces in office workplaces, the more other things we can design into those spaces. So the more opportunity for meaningful amenities, for the respite spaces and other enhancements that, their teams may need.
Can I ask, how long have you been doing this? Architect and businesses?
This is going to age me. I've been an architect. I think I got licensed in 2000. Sorry, I'm
Okay, 2000. Yeah.
so about
25 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I guess I was interning prior to that, so I've been actively working on this 30 years.
That's exciting.
That is so exciting.
I'm sure it's changed a lot.
Well, that was my next question is how have you seen it change? Because you said your mind shift kind of, or mindset kind of shifted a couple of years ago. But even before that, how has things shifted over the years?
And I'm sure with COVID too, and just there's not so many, you see IT for, or the Sanford call centers and stuff. It's crazy.
So I would say, well, it's kind of interesting because when I first started, and my career has kind of taken on multiple different forms, as I think most architects, you kind of weave your way through different typologies to find where you really feel like you fit. And if, 25, 30 years ago, you said that I would land, or if I had said I would land in office, I would have laughed, like, no way. And I think oftentimes people think, well, like, there's nothing exciting or all that challenging about office design. And when you get into it, it is probably one of the most meaningful areas, and because people spend, and I think you guys had said this at the front end of this podcast, as much time in our offices as we do in our homes.
Yeah.
And think of all the time and attention that we put into curating a healthy, homing environment that we can go home to and relax and recharge and just feel at peace in. So why do we expect to then go the other half of our days to an office where it's bland and we don't feel good in the space, or we don't feel like we're thriving in the space? I fundamentally think that just needs to change on its head, because, we've heard for the last few years all these companies struggling on getting staff back to the office and mandating people coming back. Well, I think that it's missing the whole point. We don't have to mandate. We just need to create offices that people want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cultures that people want to have fun in. And so what's changed over the years? I think that's what's changed, is that awareness around an office not being this, just productivity machine.
Stiff and
But really creating this environment that people want to engage in. And we laugh about this term resi-mercial, where it's that kind of blurred line between residential and commercial offices.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's wrong with having a great comfy couch that you can go sit in for a while over lunch hour and maybe read a magazine or something, in between working on your projects? What's wrong with the idea of being able to take 5 minutes and closing your eyes and getting back to work feeling better than ever? What's the harm in that? I think it's one of the most exciting things to explore right now, is just finding out how can we create an environment that it's just an extension of our well-being.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're such an advocate for this. It's so fun.
I kind of geek out on it. But again,
You're passionate about it, though. Yeah.
because I know what it's like to not be to be in a space where I wasn't thriving versus now one that I just feel like it just gives me a hug every time I'm in.
Yeah.
Excited to go to work, which it's probably not a thing that a lot of people can say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I also have excellent coworkers that always
that
helps. Fun. So yeah, that can't be missed.
Yes. Well, so you have a leadership position at JLG, correct? How are you more so as a leader versus the space helping, your employees' well-being and just creating like a healthy leadership style?
So I lead our workplace team, and every Monday morning we have a team call for about an hour. One of the things I am also very passionate about is, I feel like in our professions, we all get professional development. I think personal development has to be every bit as important and brought into those discussions as professional development.
Yeah.
And so I use that hour as an opportunity to talk about some of those elements. I try to mentor around those ideas. And I pray that I create a space where my team really knows that they can come to me for anything. They've seen me go through some hard stuff. I pray that I showed up authentically, and there was certainly times where it was really hard. And they wrapped their arms around me and embraced me through it, and the least I can do is give them that same support back. I feel really blessed to be at a company where, we take mental health really, really seriously. I have a coworker that has had, he lost his son to suicide, and he has been probably one of the most incredible examples of being honest about what he's gone through, but still showing up and still supporting everyone around him. And if he can, gosh, I sure can. And so I just feel like we have a really fantastic environment there that has created just a safe space for all of our teams to be honest, authentic, and know that if something's going on and they need a break or they need support, that they can ask and they'll be heard without there being any retribution.
Yeah.
Important.
Well, and even just you being the leader, like having and sharing that vulnerability is so powerful, I think, because then you create that space that other people feel like they can share that too. So
Thank you.
I'm sure they really appreciate that.
Well, and full honesty, I don't know that I always have.
Yeah.
I've come to a place now where I feel that I can be much more authentic about it. But I will say that there were a couple of years that I definitely tried to keep a facade up, I think protecting my family was what I thought I was doing.
Yeah.
The reality is I was protecting my ego. Nobody wants to talk about their kids not excelling, much less really being in a hard spot. And going through that experience has just, I guess, made me more aware that there's more people out there like me that are, maybe their heart looks different than mine, but they're in the midst of a hard too. And the more that we can all talk about it together and support each other, I just think makes for a better world to live in.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think that's so powerful of actually being able to talk about it, because that is such a thing of where, especially in higher up companies or business owners or whatever, they're afraid to open up about their feelings because they feel like people are going to look upon them differently. And I think that's so powerful when one person steps out and is open about how they're feeling or what's going on in their life, because then it makes other people also feel like they can too. I think I think it's amazing that you came out and are very open about your journey.
Well, a few years ago, it was during COVID, lost a friend from back in my hometown who she'd been fighting a long cancer battle, and she had a very young family, and she unfortunately did pass away. And I remember at the time, and it's when I was in the midst, or my husband and I were in the midst of going through what we were with Cole. And when I heard of her passing, instead of being profoundly sad for her family, I felt a pang of jealousy because her pain ended. And it was in that moment that I realized I needed to take action because I knew I wasn't okay. So I actually left my job that I love, my coworkers that I just profoundly love. I left for 7 months to kind of go get healthy, to go get the help I needed to. And that included 7 months of breathing and all sorts of fun things. But I had a group of friends that showed up. Most of them didn't even know what I was going through. They just showed up. And it taught me a lot. And I know that, well, I'm not alone in that. And it had some, ties back to the timing was COVID, but there's a lot of people that are hurting. And I think when we get into more leadership positions, it's easier to brush that aside because you don't have time to deal with it. And our egos don't want anyone to think that anything could possibly be going on because it could impact our careers, all the things. And I got to a point where I didn't have a choice but to get real with it, or else, other things would have taken up over. And I love my family, I love my friends, and I love my job too much to have taken any other route.
I love that you recognize that, though. And were able to take that time, and that your job allowed you to take that time. Oh, I'm so grateful.
My poor husband, I think she was like, is this a midlife crisis?
It's like, what's going on?
But I like, that's what I do with best family, and it was so
amazing. I love that. I feel like it's not often that someone is like able to take a step back and kind of work on themselves. They usually just push through, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. So I think that's amazing that you did that. Yeah. And I thank you for coming here today. Like, we're very grateful for this conversation, and it's always nice to hear your perspective because I feel like you just have such a different mindset about things, and I love that.
Well, thank you. This has been a joy. I appreciate you guys for even letting me come here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This is a good change, I think, in our community that you're pushing for, and hopefully more people will be receptive to it. And
I do so too.
I agree. Okay, so before we go, we always end with the same question. What does living well mean to you?
Oh, I want to say it means like eating really healthy and all of that, but I can tell you I've not been embracing that lately, so that's on my to-do list. I'm actually taking this week off. I'm on vacation, and I'm doing a staycation.
oh, that's so needed.
I am going to do a few things around the house. I definitely need to do a little cleaning. That's a little, again, ego kick.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just chill, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And I am going to have fun. I might even have a glass of wine in the middle of the day.
That's perfect.
It's your staycation. You can do that if you want to.
I'm going to chill. And that is something that is so out of character for me. It's not natural for me, but I'm learning that I need to pause more often. And my family needs me to pause. And I'm excited to just kind of hang out with my daughter as she comes home from school.
Yeah.
Just even like 2, 3, 4 more hours a day with her will be a blessing. And that, I don't know, I mean, to me, living well just means finding those moments that they might be big moments. They also might be those really small ones that are really inconspicuous, but not deeply.
That's amazing. I love that. And then you can show up as your better self at work, at home, and
That's the hope.
yes. Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much, Tracy. This was so great.
Thank you.